Dr. Siddiqa, thank you so much for joining us. Minutes ago, Pakistan Supreme Court has struck down the constitutional coup we saw in Pakistan a few days ago, where a no confidence vote was judicially struck down by the deputy speaker. There were extraordinary events. What is your assessment of the Supreme Court's ruling today? For joining us minutes ago, Pakistan.
Praveen, there's an echo.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, it's okay now. I think this is meant to be a birthday gift, that the particular decision of the Supreme Court. Everybody was on their haunches, very nervous, very unsure, and actually looking at the way debate was going on in the Supreme Court, which is why it was a worry. 2 minutes before the judgment came, everybody thought it was going to be a 50-50 chance, 50% that they will condemn, the Imran Khan's decision, and then, order holding of elections, early elections. And half the people said, what happened, the kind of judgment that came. And one is so happy that the Supreme Court, despite that, they face a major challenge of whether to question really and get involved in parliamentary decisions, parliamentary working. I think they came up with the right decision. It is the perfect decision, which is restoring the parliament, allowing the no confidence vote to go through, and basically condemning a very unconstitutional behavior by Imran Khan.
Now, I want to unpack this decision just a little bit, if I may. And the first element, of course, is the restoration of the no confidence vote. The Supreme Court has asked Pakistan's National Assembly to hold the no confidence vote on Saturday. What does this actually mean? Are we back in time to where we were before these extraordinary developments? And what happens next? If you could just explain that a little for us.
I think what had happened was that the day the no confidence vote was to take place, the deputy speaker, not even the speaker, the deputy speaker had dismissed the prorogued the session, and then the prime minister, on the basis that the prime minister had written to the president and asked him to dissolve the assemblies, while there was already, a no confidence motion. Had already been moved against it. So it was on agenda of the National Assembly session, and the president couldn't do it. So basically, if you look at the decision, it's not just a decision to restore the parliament, so it goes back and goes ahead with the no confidence vote, but it's also a condemnation of the prime minister and the deputy speaker's decisions. Logically, what the opposition should now be doing is actually go to the Supreme Court again and use Article 6 of the Constitution, because what Imran Khan has done, he's really dishonored the Constitution. He went against the Constitution, and he should be punished for that.
One of the second element of the judgment, of course, is that it. Hello, we've just lost the signal to Dr. Siddiqa. I'm trying to get it back. The second element of the decision, of course, very important one, is that, as you mentioned, it strikes the deputy speaker's judgment down. Now, the deputy speaker and Prime Minister Imran Khan had made a number of allegations that the opposition was somehow engaged in a treasonous or shady international conspiracy. Can you explain that to us a little bit, and what the Supreme Court judgment means about those allegations about treason and conspiracies to bring the government down?
I think they did not. They looked at it. They said that the government had asked the government to share minutes of the meeting, of the NSC meeting, National Security Committee's meeting, in which the whole complaint and then this issue of treason was taken up. So basically bring that, inform the court of what had happened. I think in many ways the government failed. What is very interesting is that on the one hand, the army, the powerful, politically powerful army, was kind of leaking news to reporters, to journalists, that they did not back the whole treason story, yet they did not comment. And I think that was, in some ways, they were abiding by the principle that anything which is discussed in the National Security Committee should stay there, it shouldn't go out, it shouldn't be discussed. I mean, if I remind you, this is exactly what had happened with Nawaz Sharif when Dawn leaks happened. I mean, the military's main complaint was that whatever was discussed in the National Security Committee shouldn't have come out. So they followed the principle. Now, I'm so sorry because I'm doing it on the phone.
No,
so,
I understand, and I can't thank you enough on behalf of our audience for making the time on your birthday dinner. So thank you again.
So the thing is that I think this is a big blow to Imran Khan's campaign, because now with restoration, see, I see two things here. One is that now Imran Khan will definitely have to make a lot more effort to go around with this narrative and publicizing, amongst his constituents, amongst his supporters, which remain polarized, which remain in support of him, that there is a conspiracy, because now Supreme Court has struck it down. And interestingly, it has been struck down by 5 judges who have a reputation of being a bit more sympathetic than other judges on the bench, sympathetic to the military establishment. So it has been struck down, and which brings us back to the other issue, which is that perhaps the military is backing off from Imran Khan. So with that position, if he enters so either the opposition would take it to its natural conclusion, which is actually bring a treason case against him in the court of law, and really make sure that he cannot ever enter politics or contest elections, and put his political career to death. So either they do that, or the other is that or the other is that they don't do that. Yet the army itself is not going to really support him the way they've done in 2018 elections, which means that there is an element of equality amongst the different political players, and whoever can score better will win the next election, whenever they take place.
For the benefit of our viewers, Imran Khan, as you say, was seen as a creature of the army, very close to the military establishment, very close to the powers that be. Why did this relationship, in your view, sour so badly over recent months? And what does it tell us about the problems in civil-military relations? Because this is not the first prime minister with whom relations have, after all, become sour. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif himself suffered the same fate. Before that, the PPP, and so on. What is the problem really here?
Argue, the two ways of looking at it. Firstly, I mean, a lot is said about economy, bad economic performance, bad governance. I don't think that
Dr. Siddiqa, we are losing you, but we're joined by Mr. Salahuddin Ahmad, the very eminent lawyer in Pakistan. Thank you so much, firstly, Mr. Ahmad, for making this time to be with us today. I know it's a very exciting time. My first question really was, we'd seen a lot of people over the last few days wondering, which way the court was going to go. And one of the arguments that had been made was that the Supreme Court would be reluctant to engage in a discussion of what happened in Parliament. Can you just unpack that a little bit for us, for our audience? What has the court actually said here about its powers to adjudicate on events in Parliament?
I'm sorry, our connection got disrupted there.
I'll just repeat my question. One of the arguments made by Prime Minister Imran Khan's lawyers was that Pakistan's Supreme Court can't really involve itself in discussions of what happens in Pakistan's parliament. Can you just explain for our viewers why the Supreme Court seems to have rejected that line of argument and basically said that what the Deputy Speaker did was illegal?
The argument made by them was based, by the government's lawyers, was based on Article 69 of the Constitution, which gives a kind of immunity from court proceedings to, affairs of the Parliament. But what was argued by the petitioners was that Article 69 protects the court from taking cognizance of any procedural irregularities in the affairs of the Parliament. What they were contending was that the Speaker, by refusing to allow the vote of no confidence to take place, that was not merely a procedural irregularity, rather it was a violation of Article 95 of the Constitution, which mandates that if at any time 20% of the total number of parliamentarians move a resolution to remove the Prime Minister, it must be put to vote within a period of 7 days. So they said that the violation of a constitutional command cannot be considered a procedural irregularity, and therefore it cannot be immune from the scrutiny of the court. Secondly, their contention was that in any event, no matter how strong a constitutional ouster clause is, it cannot possibly be used to protect or shield acts that are malafide or without jurisdiction. And the argument was that the Speaker, by terming more than 200 members of Parliament as traitors and refusing them the right to vote, that was an act which was not only without jurisdiction, but it was also malafide, and hence the court can and should intervene. So that argument has clearly been eventually, in fact, when the Attorney General was pressed on this point by the Supreme Court, eventually he even threw up his hands in the air and said, well, even I will concede that the ruling is defective. But what then he started arguing was that even if you set aside the ruling, now that the Prime Minister has announced new elections, you should let the matter go to elections. But the Supreme Court has rejected that contention as well. It has ordered that the no confidence motion be restored to the same place as it was on the 3rd of April. And now fresh voting will take place on the 9th of April.
For the benefit of Indian audiences, we'd seen a lot of commentary in newspapers about why this was such an important constitutional benchmark in Pakistan, and about something called the doctrine of necessity, which had let courts evade their responsibility to the constitution in the past. Could you just unpackage that a little bit for an Indian audience which isn't familiar with the ins and outs of the story, and why this is such a dramatic benchmark in Pakistan's constitutional history?
The thing is that, from the 1950s, Pakistan has seen a number of constitutional deviations and a number of military takeovers as well. And the Supreme Court in Pakistan had invented this doctrine of necessity, in which they would say that, well, yes, such and such act was unconstitutional, but we consider that it was in the public interest, it was in the national interest, and therefore it was necessary. And the welfare of the public is the supreme law, and therefore it was necessary to do it, and therefore we are condoning it. So the doctrine of necessity was used to justify and give legal cover, judicial cover, to military takeovers in the past. The apprehension in this case was that
I'm sorry, we lost you for just a second there. The
yeah,
apprehension was.
right. The apprehension.
We'll just try and get our connection back with Salahuddin Ahmad, and want to apologize. But just for those of you who joined in at late, in a landmark judgment in Pakistan, the Supreme Court has struck down the Deputy Speaker's notification, which stalled the vote of no confidence against Prime Minister Imran Khan. This means that Pakistan's National Assembly will go back and face a vote again. Mr. Ahmad, we lost you. Just I'm sorry about these terrible India-Pakistan internet connections. But just to go back to your point about the doctrine of necessity and why there were apprehensions.
Yes. So in this case,
we're having trouble with that connection. I'm truly apologize for this. But what has happened is that Pakistan Supreme Court has struck down the Speaker's notification. Mr. Ahmad joins us again.
I'm terribly sorry for the connection. Yeah. The apprehension in this case about the doctrine of necessity, or its invocation, was that the government's lawyers had argued that even if the Speaker's ruling was unconstitutional and his refusal to entertain the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister was unconstitutional, and
So again, my apologies to our audience for these persistent internet issues we're having with our guests in Pakistan. Mr. Ahmad, please go on.
Yes, sorry. So the Pakistan's constitution also, Article 58 says that a prime minister who's facing a no confidence motion, he cannot dissolve the assemblies and he cannot call a fresh election. So, but what the government's lawyers were arguing was that even if the Speaker's ruling dismissing the no confidence motion was unconstitutional, and hence the Prime Minister's dissolution of the assemblies and calling for fresh elections was also unconstitutional, even then the Supreme Court should not intervene, and it should allow the elections to proceed, because a constitutional crisis had been created, even though it was obviously of the government's own making. And they said that law and order would, the law and order situation would deteriorate, and there'd be much more uncertainty, and any coalition government formed by the opposition would be a very weak government. And therefore, so they gave a number of reasons why the process of the elections should not be stopped. But thankfully, the Supreme Court did not invoke any doctrine of necessity or of the national interest or national security, etc. And they went strictly by the letter of the law and the constitution, and they held that assemblies shall be restored and voting on the no confidence shall take place.
So a final question, Salahuddin Saab, again. So in essence, this means that there will be a vote of no confidence, and presumably at some stage, the majority in parliament will then elect a new prime minister, and there will be a vote of confidence.
Yes, currently,
which decides on the path forward.
Yes, currently the Supreme Court has ordered that the voting on the no confidence takes place on the 9th of April. It seems like the opposition has more than enough numbers to remove Prime Minister Imran Khan, and seemingly immediately after that, then a session will be called to elect a new prime minister. And seemingly, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, has the numbers necessary to be elected as prime minister.
Mr. Salahuddin, thank you so much. I know it's been a really busy evening for you. Thank you for taking these few minutes.
Thank you.
And we hope, I'm sure you're not hoping, but we're hoping we'll be able to trouble you again in coming days as this.
It would be a pleasure.
Thank you.
It would be a pleasure. Thank you.
We have a bunch of questions from our audience, which I'll try and answer as best I can. And the first from Nilanjan Ghosh is, how will key cabinet portfolios be allocated? Well, the simple answer to that is there's a way to go before that right now. There's going to be a vote of no confidence against Prime Minister Imran Khan, who is Prime Minister again. There's going to be a vote of no confidence against him on Saturday. It looks like the opposition right now has the numbers. So his government will be brought down. What is now the opposition will then elect a leader that's expected to be, as Mr. Salahuddin Ahmed just told us, likely to be Shehbaz Sharif, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's brother. And then they will allocate cabinet portfolios once they faced a vote of confidence and won a vote of confidence in the assembly. We don't know if that will be on Saturday itself or that will take place at some date in the future. And to answer your second question, Nilanjan, will the speaker and deputy speaker be removed? No. But the court has given an order that there will be a vote on Saturday and that they have to conduct this vote. So unless they're looking to defy Pakistan's Supreme Court, which would be another unprecedented twist to this already unprecedented drama, that voting should probably happen in an orderly way. Pagleski has asked, so with Parliament in limbo, given his imminent removal and 4 months till the election, who coordinates Pakistan's wheat, edible oil, pharma, all other kinds of imports? Well, it doesn't look like it's going to be quite that chaotic, in the sense that very shortly after Saturday, you should have a government which will hold office until the end of this Parliament's tenure, and which is some months from now. But this interim government will get to make all those decisions. So we'll just have to wait and see what it decides. One of the difficult decisions before that government, of course, is a little bit of a, if you like, time bomb Prime Minister Imran Khan threw in the mix when it looked like he was on his way out. He announced a massive subsidy package for a number of things in Pakistan, including fuel, including food. And that has led to the sabotage of Pakistan's ongoing negotiations with the International Monetary Fund, which has been sort of bailing out Pakistan's economy in tranches. Now, what we'll have to wait and see is whether a government goes with this subsidy package, continues it, or rolls it back for the IMF package. Again, the answer to that is we don't know. Obviously, people in Pakistan would like to see economic stability, but no politician would like to be responsible for rolling back a generous subsidy package just ahead of an election. So we'll happen to see. Aditya has a question about whether Shehbaz Sharif is finally ready. Well, again, given the number of twists and turns we've had in this drama, I don't want to be an astrologer. But it looks like he has the numbers, as Mr. Salahuddin was just saying, to form a government. And MS has a question about why mostly Pakistani people seen on the internet are dissatisfied, seem dissatisfied with the Supreme Court judgment. Well, Prime Minister Imran Khan's PTI has a vast and loyal social media following. Young people who support the PTI online, very vocal, are sometimes little unpleasantly called youthias by their opponents, who of course support the PPP or the PMLN, and they've been known to be very vocal, very strident, sometimes unpleasant on social media. But elections in our part of the world, and this is true of India also, are not fought and won on social media. So enjoy the sloganeering, enjoy the arguments, but don't take it too seriously, would be my assessment. We'll have to wait and see how elections eventually go in Pakistan. And the key issue is going to be whether voters are going to be drawn by this nationalist platform Prime Minister Imran Khan has held out, attacking the United States, trying to cash in on anti-American sentiment, and claiming that there are conspiracies by the United States to remove him from office, or whether voters will in fact continue to be focused on economic issues, the poor performance of the government, high inflation, the forced turn to the IMF. All this we'll just have to wait and see. Voters are very unpredictable. There's a lot of time to go between now, many months between now and the eventual election. The Election Commission of Pakistan has said that it'll take at least 6 to 7 months to finish delimitation and get ready for an election. But yes, and an interesting question from Pagleski says that India seems to be surrounded by countries all rolling in political chaos, trade deficits, insane levels of government debt. Absolutely true. And this isn't good news for India, because as India pursues growth and pursues stability, it would like neighbors that are reasonably stable, that are economically functioning well, and with whom it can do business politically and otherwise. So yeah, not great times in the neighborhood, not good news for anyone who wishes India well or wishes the neighborhood well. But I guess the kind of couple of bright spots in this entire scenario is that Bangladesh's economy is doing reasonably well. There are governments across the region which are reasonably pro-India. And even in this crisis in Pakistan, we have not seen any irresponsible anti-India polemic. Prime Minister Imran Khan even has had many things to say about America, but he's been quite complimentary about Indian foreign policy. So hopefully, one of the positive takeaways, without being too Panglossian about it, is that we've seen across the neighborhood governments being reasonably sort of friendly about India, and hopefully things will stay that way. An interesting question from Shanal Shekhar about whether there are divisions within the family. Former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and former Chief Minister Shehbaz Sharif have in public been presented a united face, and from what we learned, actually tried to work together through this crisis to get a foot back in the door in the political system. But we know in the background there are some tensions, particularly to do with succession. So Chief Minister Shehbaz Sharif's son is now poised to be Chief Minister in Punjab. We know that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's daughter had some ambitions about that. We don't know how that will play out. And another question from Shanal: are there divisions in the Pakistan army? Well, they've been talked about a lot. And one of the things that was said to have held up the Supreme Court judgment for as long as it took was that some people within the military were backing Prime Minister Imran Khan. Well, we know from social media, from things Pakistani colleagues are telling us, that Prime Minister Imran Khan definitely has some friends. His anti-American polemic has some sort of a sway in the Pakistan army. But what we've also seen is that the Pakistan army, whatever the views of younger officers may be, which are probably not different from being divided as society as a whole is, it's a disciplined institution which falls in line behind the army chief. And in this case, the poor relationship between the army chief and Prime Minister Imran Khan was not a secret. We know Prime Minister Imran Khan had tried hanging on to the former ISI chief, General Faiz Hamid, over the wishes of the army chief. And that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. And probably whatever younger officers may feel, who like other young people in Pakistan may be very pro Imran Khan, they will go with the chief. Rolit, or the UN decision on Russia on human rights, we'll come back to this. Please keep following us. But for now, just to sum up our discussion for today, for now, it does look like Pakistan Supreme Court has taken a landmark step forward on constitutional rights, defended Pakistan's constitution, showed backbone, and struck down the Deputy Speaker's order rejecting the vote of no confidence brought against Prime Minister Imran Khan. On Saturday, that vote of no confidence will be heard, and we at ThePrint.in will be with you every step of the way through that on Saturday. We'll try and answer your questions on what happens in the course of that vote. And of course, look forward, along with experts like those we had today, Dr. Aisha Siddiqa and Salahuddin Ahmed, the eminent lawyer. We'll try and bring you breakdown and analysis on what happens next and what the formation of the next government means in Pakistan. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back with you in coming days.